Welcome back, dear friends. I've got a commission, which is most exciting. I've got a bit of time before we go to Whitby, just getting ready for going away and getting all the machines done, but I've got some time to be able to get on with a project. And this one is a present for someone. It's going to be a multi-time zone clock. When I think of multi-time zone clocks, I think of the one for the steampunk truck that I built a couple of years ago now, for the trucker in the US who regularly drives her truck through all the different time zones and wanted to steampunk her truck, her cab where she lives basically, and wanted the a time zone clock steampunk style, which was great fun, really complicated, real-time clocks, Arduino, stepper motors, all the lovely things. I suddenly realised whilst walking the dog, as always, why overcomplicate it? Why not just get 3 clocks and use them, battery clocks, and, you know, paint them, decorate them, add pipes and things on a nice background. Bob's your auntie. Fantastic. This is a nice baseboard, isn't it? The only problem is it's full of holes. Can you guess why? Well, this baseboard was the original one for the ukulele playing machine. Really, took a lot of trouble and care over making it, but I found that the wood that I'd used, which actually I think is that particle board, wasn't rigid enough. With the tension from the slider belts, the fret belts on here, pulling 4 of them, the whole thing started bending quite quickly. But it's absolutely fine for other things like this. And because I had this lying around, saving it for a rainy day, this is a rainy day. It'll help to keep costs down. So, because, I mean, you look up things like this, a wooden plaque with twiddly edges, nice wooden stain, on the internet or whatever, and even the small ones cost like 100 quid. It's absolutely ridiculous. Everything's so expensive. That's when I decided that the only way forward was to make my own bases, because I was astonished at how much other people charge. So it's been a challenge, because I need to cover all the holes up, and I did briefly think about drilling them out and gluing bits of dowel in and then staining them, or even using gouache paint to try and match the... Nah, mate. Nah, governor. Here's one of the clocks I managed to get hold of. The thing is with buying clocks for this sort of project, you have to make sure you get them that you can open up and take apart. And this is one such clock. That's nice. And what's even better about that clock is I've lost the front of it. What the hell have I done with that? Hang on. Aha! It hasn't got a front. This is it. It's got a bezel, a lovely brass coloured bezel that holds the glass on. Obviously I'm going to engrave a new dial for it. It's even got a thermometer in it, which is great. So I'm going to try and work out how to incorporate that. The thing is, I'm not even going to paint this one because it looks so nice. I love that colour, along with the other bits and pieces. However, these 2 smaller clocks, because this is going to be the main one in the UK time, and these 2 are going to tell US time and somewhere else time, and I can't quite remember. So these ones, lovely. Again, they just unscrew and you get the base out. And you get the sides. They were very, very, very shiny chrome, which just looks awful. So I've sanded them with 1000 grit, wet and dry, so that the paint will take, because they'll look lovely. In brass, they're a lovely shape. A classic Victorian steampunk gauge, if you will. Then I sat down at the computer and arranged everything to cover holes, and I realised that actually with these ones they'd look really nice. In fact, all 3 clock faces to have a little bezel made of wood around them, which means I can screw them onto the baseboard, fix them from the front, which is handy, and they also hide some of the holes and they look nice. This is why having a plan like this is so useful. It's basically, you know, when I needed to work out the calculation how far down to drill that first hole, I just look it up on the drawing, which is great. And now what I'm going to do, now I know that I've managed to do this, I'm going to draw a 21mm diameter tube and just see how long, what looks right. So my job now, having designed all the pipe work and bits and pieces and happy with the balance, it all looks nice, is I've got to work out a way of fixing copper pipe, 15mm copper pipe, to these clocks. And this one especially, because of the design, it needs the pipe going in up there. How to do it? Well, having spent a long time, as you can see, rummaging through my collection of plumbing fittings and things, I decided to use some acrylic pipe, because I found 22mm acrylic pipe, which I happen to have. You could push a 15mm fitting into the end of it, so that was nice. And I spent a long time sanding, thinking, oh yes, hand-eye coordination, blah 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 blah. I've got it pretty close, but I'm not happy with it. I think once I glue that on, it's just not going to look right. So plan 2, because obviously typically the seller of these were the last 2 they had in stock, so I mustn't damage them. I'm going to use that. As you know, if you've watched previous videos, using a hole saw puts much less force, fingers crossed, on something like this, because it's not going to be very strong. If you try to use a normal twist drill bit, it would be an absolute disaster. I'm hoping this isn't going to be an absolute disaster, because that's 22, this is 21 typically. I haven't got a 22, but it means I could turn down some of this on the lathe by 0.5mm all round. Then it would fit. Then I would have the perfect thing. So let's give that a go now. As always, let's go over to the pillar drill. I'm going to find a way of clamping this down at the right angle, because I've marked out exactly where the pipe has to enter, the height and everything. Fingers crossed. It's a plan of sorts. 2 pieces of MDF clamped together. I've lined this up vertically with the base, so I can now support this and drill the hole. And I will video it, because if it all goes horribly wrong, I want your pity, please. Apologies if I get in the way, but just do it. It's the project that just keeps getting more complicated. There's my 22mm tube. Obviously I need to support this, because trying to turn something that long down that's plastic is just a recipe for disaster. Luckily I had a 22mm compression fitting. I've drilled a hole in the end, put the bearing thingy support in that end, and now I'm just going to go backwards and forwards trying to get it down to 21 so it fits in the hole. I've managed to get the feed screw working again as well, so I can get well out of the way. And it'll also, if it doesn't fly off, it'll make a much more even cut, because obviously I'm not trying to turn it around manual like. The important thing obviously is to keep an eye on it to stop it before it ploughs the tool straight into the spinning chuck. Near as damn it, Janet. I think that's perfect. And it has left it, given it a really nice finish. It's so smooth. I don't think I'm going to have to sand that really. I might run a bit of wet and dry over it quickly. And the great thing is that I've now got enough to connect all 3 clocks up. I forgot to mention, I'm absolutely thrilled, because it's the first time I've managed to struggle downstairs over the weekend before lunchtime. Well, no, that's not fair. First time I have come into the workshop over the weekend before lunchtime, that's right. So I haven't seen them, but look, it's just after 11 and they are all on AM. Fantastic. Because I've been coming in and checking on them, but they've just stayed on PM. So I didn't know whether they were working properly or completely not working. Will you look at that? With the aid of a Sharpie just to go around it. Then I bounced on a bit of sanding and it just fits perfectly. One top tip I found really handy when working with tube like I do, which isn't the right one I'm sure, is to put a bit of masking tape along the top, so to speak, so you can always keep it aligned. Otherwise you just cannot, and it slowly twists and ruins it. Right, I'll get that cut down to the required length and get that glued in. Can't wait to spray it up. It's always really exciting when you make things. I just remember it from college so much, learning to make really accurate models out of woods and plastics and all sorts of bits and pieces. And they'd look like a complete hodgepodge until you sprayed them up, and then it all just brought everything together. It's time to paint the clocks. Now, these ones are really nice because the cardboard printed dials just pulled off this sort of tacky tape stuff or glue, which is great. That's nice. Now, I'm going to leave these insides white, so I just think it'll look nice with the white engraved, laser engraved background. And also I'm going to leave these clocks inside the dark brown sort of Bakelite look. I've drilled that top hole. I can't remember where I've got. Oh, that's right, that's the side hole for the 6mm tube to go into the pipe. Well, I thought about these two bits which are going to take the pipe entries into that dark clock, and I'm not going to paint them brass. I'm going to paint them some brown colour. Oh, it is drying eventually. Oh, thank goodness for that, because it's really old paint and I've just sprayed it. I've spent so long making these two sort of entrances, but I think this is the sort of interesting aesthetic decision. I think it's going to be too much to have brass going into that dark brown clock face. So once this is dry, I'll give them a little light spray in black just to get them more like the right colour. But as for these bits, it's brass time. I've masked up the inside of these two little entrances because I want the glue to stick to the pipes, or the fitting I'm going to glue in, and if you try and stick stuff to paint, it never works very well. Another day and things are going very well, I have to say. The paint has come up a treat and I'm really pleased with those pipe entries. They just look like they're part of them. I'm very pleased with that. I've sprayed up the two pipe entries to match the colour of that, and I think that's not bad. I think that'd be lovely. I've also just cut out the backgrounds, the little bezel effects that are made of wood for the two small clocks, and there's the one for the big clock that my laser cutter isn't big enough, so I've cut it in two halves, which is interesting because it creates more potential for little design features. In the end I thought I'd split it down there. It looks a bit like a lizard or something, diagonally up to there. Another nice thing, lovely thing about doing jobs, one-off jobs for people, sort of bespoke projects, is they come up with all sorts of ideas. And they saw the original valves with the red taps on, the knobs, and they said, would it be possible, because I've sent them a picture of some old Victorian gauges that had valves more like that. I said, would it be possible to adapt them, change them that? I said, yes, why not? What a lovely idea, and it actually doesn't. I thought it would look a little bit spindly, but it looks fine. I'm really pleased with that. Luckily I had some 4mm brass rod and 6mm dome nuts just to screw onto that thread. I'm very pleased with them. Oh, that wretched thermometer. As I think I might have mentioned, it's actually mounted on the back of this card, which is why I had to leave that. What I'm planning to do is to have the engraving, laser engraving, and cut a hole for this. When I pulled the handle off, the pointer off, while I was, just to see whether I could get all this out and start afresh. Thankfully I did it with the clock sitting over this bowl, because little unknown to me rather, there's the little bimetallic spring that's the temperature thing, and that just fits in a hole in the back. Ridiculous. And because it's been so badly put together, made in China, someone stuck the clock on at a real angle. Well, it is a real angle, but a really bad angle. You can see where the hole is and where they've actually positioned it, and the gap that side. It's uptight that side, and it's all twisted round, because I drilled the hole in the top to line up with the 12, thinking, well, that's, all the clocks I've ever seen, that's what you go by. And then on the back, look, there's a 5-degree difference between where the hole is, where the 12 is, and the rest of it. Isn't that awful? I just don't care. There'd be so many better ways of actually creating a jig or a process to make sure that the numbers always end up in the right place. There's the back of the thermometer thing, and it's just a hole. You can see how lopsided it is. So anyway, cut a long story short, I'm going to try and reassemble this, but my trusty thermometer, because obviously I need to know the temperature, it's very old. I had this one when I was at school doing photography, processing black and white photography in my bedroom, and this was what I used to check the temperature of all the chemicals. It's separated, so now I've got to unseparate it. There's even a bit at the top somewhere, because obviously that's not going to read the right temperature. So I'm going to go and dip it in a cup of boiling water. It goes up to 50 degrees C, so I'm going to have to be fairly careful. I won't film that. I'll get back to you once that's done. What, you want to see me blow up a thermometer? Right, there's some very hot water. I don't know, let's zoom in. This could all get very wobbly and very oh, look, there it goes. Oh, can you see it? Ah, it's hurtling up now. I want it. I want these gaps to end up, sorry about the jiggling around, but I want these gaps to end up in this little bulb at the top where they can hopefully... I did it! I managed to get it right up into that little bulb at the top. That's why I like working at a steamhead, because I never know what I'm going to be doing each day. Even mending thermometers, it's the first one ever I've mended, and I'm really pleased to have achieved it. Now I just need to mend the thermometer in the front of the clock dial. I've got the thermometer installed, and now I'm fixing in these two pipe entrances, and I'm really pleased. I managed to get the colour absolutely spot on. So I'm using super glue, obviously, but I thought I would reinforce it with bicarbonate of soda. Yay! I don't even know whether I've released that last video on how to fix a hoover with bicarbonate of soda and super glue, but this is the perfect use for it because it can quickly, build up around that bit and also around where it goes through the outer part of the clock, and it sets instantly. So I'll get on and do that. It doesn't look pretty, but you're not going to see it. As I say, it's not pretty, but it is ever so tough and it's not going to be seen, and it sets practically instantly as you add the layers and layers of super glue and baking soda. So there's that one that's fixed. Here's this one that's fixed. Let's have a look at the front. Oh dear friends, look, isn't that lovely? In fact, put it on the table so it's not all reflective. Look, I'm very pleased with that. That's lovely, with a little brass insert that I made to accept the 6mm copper pipe. And at the top, that's nice, the little copper insert. I'm really pleased with that. I'm so pleased to have kept the original colour, this dark sort of Bakelite effect. I think that looks really nice. I think it'd be a lovely contrast against the two brass clocks. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, it's so exciting when you start. You've taken a long time in preparation and you start getting it together. I suppose my next thing is to do this dial. Where does the time go? It's 3 o'clock already. It's time to let the dog out again. It just flies by. I'm having such a great time. Here's one of the beautiful stained backgrounds for the clock faces. What I've done is to carefully measure them out from the CAD drawing, position them onto the baseboard, mark and drill pilot holes for the brass screws. I've just finished cutting out the holes so that you can gain access to the battery and the clock adjuster from the back. So I've got all three done. It was very funny and amusing this morning because I was trying to measure out, to work out where this should go, and I spent ages measuring that side, thinking, oh, but what angle should it go, and twisting it. Look! There are 3 holes there that I carefully put onto the CAD drawing. Oh, look, they line up perfectly there. So time to go and retire to the kitchen, sit in front of the computer and design the 3 different clock faces, yeah. I've been sitting hunched over a hot computer for a while now, but I'm pleased with this clock design. It's just nice. It's funny how you fiddle around with loads of different ideas just to get the right size of the font and these little twiddly bits, and how, you know, is it horizontal, should it be curved? But I'm happy with that. I've also allowed for the offset. This should fill the whole proper clock face area properly. So hence the fact that the temperature thing is moved off to the right, because I think I've got it all okay. What I'm going to do now, though, to check before I spend ages and quite a bit of money laser engraving all this from laminate, I am going to cut that out of paper, see if it does actually fit properly on there. If it does, then I can go ahead. Sometime later. I'm so pleased that I tried cutting this out of paper or card or whatever to see whether it fitted. Found that I can make the whole thing a little bit bigger by 0.5 mm all around. Found that it still didn't line up, so I had to move it a little bit. Found that it still didn't line up, but I think we're out of friends. I think I've done it. There's the slot that lines up with the 60, the top of the dial. That has to line up with that because they stuck it all over the place, which is the whole problem. That's now in the middle. This sits beautifully and fits in the back of the surround. I've got this lined up now. I'm so pleased. So if I cut this out, it should just, you can see the numbers. Obviously this will be white, so it'll look okay. I just need to cut down, there's always something, isn't there? I just need to cut down the pointer, the temperature pointer a little bit. I'm happy with that. So now I'll go and transpose these dimensions onto the clock design. That's right. Then I'm going to take the dog for a walk. This morning I'm cutting out some clock faces. I've line cut, line engraved all the lines, funnily enough, and now it's raster engraving of numbers, like so, with a bit of luck. If I was going to make loads of these, batch produce them like with my other machines and clocks, I would take the trouble of not raster engraving the numbers, but turn them into numbers made up of all the lots and lots of little lines, line engraving, sort of 0.1 millimeters apart, because then it's much quicker. But that takes ages to do, so with this one-off job it's much easier just to use the raster engrave, even though it takes longer. Enough about that. It's some time later and it's still raster engraving, but looking good. The hands on the two small clocks were just stubby ones. They really didn't look any sort of Victorian or ornate. They're horrible things. And I've been umming and ahhing how to do that, how to change the shape. You know, I got a load of files, needle files, blocks, other files. I even tried cutting them with a scalpel. But in the end, dear friends, the lovely sanding machine, again, as always, I just held them over the top to get that internal curve, concave curve, and then just gently down like this. Just did it by eye, and I think I managed to get them to match up really quite well. I'll just sand the front lightly with some 400 gauge to get all the sort of little edges off, and then colour the sides black. Lovely. Here's a nice little part of the project. The customer wants a plaque on the back, not this one, but the engraving laminate is 1.5 millimeters thick, and this is going to be flush on the wall because I rebaited the keyhole hangings. So I've just had to route a thing. I put my finger over that bit where I went too far, which turned out perfectly. Excellent. And just using wooden bits and a bit of plastic weighted down with everything heavy I could find and another bit of wood meant that I could just go around and just do it all, route it out. Most enjoyable, only by 1.5 millimeters, but worth it. I've got the thermometer pointer reattached, double checked with the other thermometer. I've cut away this middle bit because I realised it wasn't stuck to anything, the card, just leaving the bit that's stuck. And I've got this beautiful, look at that beautiful, gorgeous laser engraved clock face, which fits perfectly and lines, look at that. Finally the clock is going to be in the centre of this dial, and you'd never know that was offset, so that just beautifully highlights that. That's lovely. Right, to get that fixed down. I'm thrilled with that. That looks absolutely great. Go away, reflections. That's really nice. Very pleased with the look of that. The only thing is, and I've put it together with the intentions of screwing it down permanently, but look, see that catching the light? There's another one there and there. I didn't notice it. This is the original part of the clock that I haven't sprayed or anything. It's badly injection moulded with little bits of extra fluff, you know, sprue sticking out. It's just not right, so I'm going to take it to pieces, sand this down and respray it. If a job's worth doing, etc, etc. I'm pleased with these clock faces too. Laser engraved the outside with a hole in the middle, and I printed on good quality photo paper the flags, and then just glued them in with that multi-purpose boss stick and stuck them down into each clock, because these ones haven't got screws in the middle. The clock movements just actually clip in with two clips. I haven't used them before, so that's nice. Now I'm just waiting for the paint to dry on this. I want to get that done. And I'm waiting for the glue to dry on them. I want to get that done, because then I can put everything together, and then I can mount them up, and then we'll finally see it all starting to come together. But I can't. I've got to wait for paint and glue to dry. Mind you, having said that, during the meanwhile, look, we have a copper coil to make. Every self-respecting steampunk machine should have some sort of copper coil on it somewhere. And my preferred way of making them is with 6mm annealed copper pipe, which means it's very soft, but it does work hard, and as you bend it, if you do it too much, it gets harder and harder and harder. You can re-anneal it with a blowtorch or something. My preferred method of assembly, so to speak, is to use one of these bits off a bending machine that I've never used, but they're very useful, these. Put it in the lathe, wind it on, and there's just enough for 6 or however many rotations there are, bit sticking out one end, and I can leave the other end nice and long. Now that is very much easier said than done, but we'll give it a go. That's not come out too badly. It never comes out perfect. I've got plenty of turns, and now I can take the middle bit out because it always springs open a bit, and then just try and get things even. I can't bear it when these coils, people make coils and they're all sort of wonky and bent and things, so I can now even it all up, hopefully. The other handy thing is to have a jig or something. Now I know that's the height that I want all the copper pipes. I've added those little bits and the bits on the smaller clock enclosures to line up with that, with the clock on a 3mm base, like that. So I've got this, I want the copper pipe to come out of the centre of that, so I'm just sort of bending, putting a bend on here so it can come down and leave that at the right height. On the drawing it was slightly different, but now I'm actually working with copper, it's going to come straight down, which I think will be absolutely fine. I'm very pleased with that, after much tweaking and stuff, and it's lovely because it's malleable, so it's like plasticine. It doesn't spring back, really. And I've evened up all that and got that level with the other thing, so you can see the difference now. It's useful having one of these printed out. The fact that I've changed it slightly, but you're never going to know, and that hopefully is the right height to fit into all the 15mm plumbing parts. I think the glue is now dry and the paint is now dry, so I'm going to finally assemble the clocks. Yes! So there's the plan, and here's the thing so far. I'm very pleased with how that's turned out. It's coming on a treat. All the clocks are nicely supported. The brass screws around them look really nice with the 3 down there. We've got the pipe entry coming up here, like on the drawing, and across there. How exciting. That means tomorrow I can start doing the plumbing. And even more important, the clock movements, batteries and clock adjuster, all line up perfectly on the back. And the copper pipe looks lovely, sitting roughly in place. Oh, I can't wait. I just hope I can sleep tonight, ready for tomorrow, because it's so exciting. It's another day, an exciting day, because it's time to do some plumbing. So there's the results so far, and this is what it needs to look like, sort of. It's interesting doing plumbing, whether it's in real life plumbing or in make-believe steampunk plumbing. Because you know, I think, well, I'll start there. I think, no, actually, I'm not going to start there. I'll start here because I know how high that is. No, I'm not going to start there because that angle, the height of that bit, because this is 45 degrees, is imperative. I'm going to start here and get this bit going up there first. Then I can know exactly where that is lining up. It's nice. It's a sort of puzzle. It's coming together nicely. I'm very pleased with how this is going. I started there as I suggested, and then just so I had a whole lot I had to cover up with one of these Munson rings, so that's handy. Not sure how I'm going to cover them up, but we'll sort out something. So the tap looks nice there. Again, you know, once you've got this bit, the angle, and you've worked out the 2 angles, then you can decide where you want the tap to go. It didn't look right in the middle or too near to this Munson ring, but it just looks nice there, I feel. So now, that's now horizontal, I've measured it, so I'm just sorting out whereabouts to position this valve. And now I know the height there, I can cut another piece of copper for this top T. And then once I've done that, get that bit done, and then the excitement of that begins. Oh, and I forgot about the machine name as well, that's good. I haven't done that yet. Munson rings are fantastic, it's so lovely that they still produce brass ones. I suppose for, you know, really hot pipes and things you just couldn't use plastic. And they come in such a variety of things. They're brilliant as well because you can, you know, when you screw them down, you can just twist them out of the way and then twist them back. You can get different size rings for the tops, and you get different sorts of bases. The ones I usually use is that sort of a standard M10 thread, which is also useful because you can use bolts and things as well. I use them loads, things like the Nepnet Thrubwell to hold the horn in place. So you can use that sort of base, or you can have that sort of base, which means that you can add little extenders like that. You can get so many accessories for these things. It's incredible. You can even get these ones, so you can sort of hang a load of pipes or support pipes in parallel. Great, unless of course you've ordered normal ones like these for the Nepnet Thrubwell kits, and the plumbing suppliers thought, well, a Munson ring's a Munson ring, and they send you a load like these. Interesting. But they are fantastic things. Right, I've got all the bits arranged and cut and everything in position. I'm happy with that, really pleased. Things like funny little things, like these two Munson rings just needed to be in line with that screw there. Yet these two didn't look, the valves didn't look right in line, so they're slightly offset. Stand up. The problem is now, as with any sort of plumbing, when you get to this stage it's sort of catch-22, you can't fit it all together. When you're soldering them properly, obviously you can set it all up first, get the flux in and everything else, and then just, if they're this sort, Yorkshire fittings, you can just use the blowtorch and the little ring of soldering there, once it's all in position, we'll then just solder it together, solder the joint. Or if if you're using end feed ones, you just run a bit of soldering as you're heating it up. But when you're using super glue, it all gets really complicated. Because if you get it wrong, you don't have very long to move it around and adjust it before the glue sets. So I'm not going to film this bit, because it could go horribly wrong. I'm going to try and work out how to bend and wrangle bits in and all the rest of it. Fingers crossed. Actually, I've just realised I could unscrew the clocks, or even one clock, and then that would have solved the problem. But that's too simple. Life is about challenges. It's impossible. Certified impossible. I cannot. I've glued most of that together, but I can't do this. So I am going to unscrew the big clock, move that out of the way, and then that frees up all these bits so I can get everything else fixed together. This is definitely the way to do it, because I can now glue this and then slide the clock onto it. I've had to elongate this clearance hole in the back from the screw that was sticking down, but that's going to make life so much easier. This is what I'm talking about. Put a little bit of glue of the super variety round in there. Get that in the slot. Look, so much easier. Well, possible basically. It was impossible before, so now all that is fixed down and I can get on with this little bit. And again, with this clock, I'll run a bit of glue just around here. That's it. Possibly a little bit on there. And then slide that into there. That's it. Line up the glue, the screw holes. Perfect. Lovely, I'll get that one screwed down. Now all that's fixed down, it's time for the coil. And the other thing that I've just done is to countersink those two holes, because the old screw holes, there was no way to hide those. If in doubt, make it obvious. So it looks like the sort of front part is screwed onto the back. That looks absolutely fine. I'm even tempted possibly to mirror them there, I don't know. Right, let's get this coil. So that's going to sit, it looks like it lines up. Ooh, Cantona. Look at that. Oh, that looks lovely. Very pleased. I've got these little copper saddles to go over this pipe, so that's nice. I just need to sort out now how to get that into there. Yeah, they look nice. And I've forgotten I didn't need to put that screw in, because the idea was that would hide it. That looks lovely. Now the problem with bending this stuff, if you do it gently you can get a lovely bend, but if you do it, and this is going to be an acute angle or whatever it's called, I don't know. that could go horribly wrong. I'll have to think about that. I think I'll experiment on the end of this to show, did I really need to add that much? I've just adapted that, bent that a little bit more, because I think this core looks nicer higher up near the top. It's sort of in line with more like that, and then there's also more room for the machine label there. I've just tried bending this end around a piece of dowel. Yes, it's a no-no. Not sure quite what to do about that then. I've come up with a solution for this corner, because if I use one of these beautiful little 8mm elbows onto there, then roughly there, I can easily get a nice little curve up like that. The great thing about this is 6, in fact it's 1/4 inch, so it's 6.25 or something millimeters. It fits perfectly, where am I, here we are, inside 8mm copper pipe. Look, just glue it in, it's an absolute perfect fit. And then these are 8mm fittings, so then they'll push into there. Brilliant! I think that looked really nice. I did have this floating around. I think I saw it on eBay or something ages, years ago, and thought that has got to have a place on a steampunk machine. It's like a spray watering head with 4 nozzles on it. But it just looked lovely, and it's been sitting around ever since. And I did think at one stage, well, possibly have that in the corner. But in the greater scheme of things, it's too cluttered. It just doesn't look right. It would just draw your eye over there and stick out too much. This just needs to be the simple bit coming down and going into there as planned. Actually, before I do this corner, I really need to get this fixed in there, because that's going to hold this off the coil off the base a little bit. I haven't got much room there, and what I've been thinking for this time is turning one. I've got this rod of lovely black plastic, and because I've got this bit here which is very dark, the clock, I think it could look lovely having a little bit, you wouldn't see that much of it, 15mm on the outside so it fits in there, and 6¼ on the inside so that pushes into it. I think that looked lovely, little twiddly bit, so I'm going to make some of that. It's so crowded around this side of the room, it's difficult to actually video anything. But first thing with a lathe is you measure the diameter of the raw material, and this is 21. And then you take 21 away from 15, 19, 20, 6. Because you're taking it off both sides, you want to take 3 off. So you start off by just touching the tip of the tool on the plastic or material, and then you use one of these. These are set in fractions of millimeters and things, so if I turn that round to there, that would be 0.1 millimeters, I think. I can't remember, but you always go back a bit, then forwards to zero it, well, you zero it like that. Anyway, you get the drift. So the first thing to do is to turn this down to 15. So that goes like that. I suddenly remembered as I was merrily cutting this down that it would be nice to have a lip so that it can stand out and have a little bobbly bit or something on it. But I'll put a centre drill in there, which is a really stubby drill, so it won't wobble around. 6.5mm drill, put that in there. I know the pipe is 6.25, but what's 1/4 millimetre between friends? And we just want to drill right through this. Right, I'm going to deburr the hole in a particularly dangerous fashion. In fact, my method of breaking this is not the best, safest way. So now I'm going to part it off. And like they do on the videos, I'm going to use something to put in here so it doesn't fly off. It probably will. And there we have it. Let's get it on the machine. Oh, it's nice and shiny, isn't it? Lovely. Look at that. I'm so pleased with the way that's come out. That's perfect because I managed to get that angle and also get it going back at the same time. What a joy, and I'm absolutely thrilled with the way that now looks. That I'm very, very pleased with. It's just nicely balanced, not too cluttered. You could believe it was actually a proper working, functioning control panel of something or other. Right, let's get the machine label here. I'm just laser engraving the machine's title plate, and I'm thinking about these two holes right in the middle. I was thinking, well, perhaps some screws or metal fixings. No, it'll look wrong. Everything else is all sort of nice. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to redesign this base for here, and then have, in fact, I could just actually make a little bit to be part of that to go out around there, very much like that one, because that'll then link in. And in fact, I think I will base it on the design of that one, just shrink it down a bit. Right, I'm going to have a sit at the computer. We have a thing, a stained thing. Let's see what it looks like. Just get it to cover that hole. Oh, I really like that. Very pleased with that. I'll get the holes pilot drilled and get the screws in. It's complete. I'm so pleased. Fantastic. Please remember to click like and subscribe if you like this sort of thing. I hope to see you next time. Whitney coming up. Thanks again for watching.